Yes, TK and Shades for TacoYaki Anime.
Yo.
And welcome back to another episode of Monster Ketchup. It is episode 64. We will be talking about our final thoughts on the spring season of 2020.
Which unfortunately was not. There's not a whole lot to choose from. There's some good ones out there. There are some good ones out there. Don't get me wrong. Just not a whole lot.
Yeah. Today we have 5 shows that we've gone to the finish line.
I've only had 4 shows. What are they?
Oh, wait. Never mind. Yeah, it is 4 because yours is the same as. Wait, no. It is 4.
One.
I only did 3. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, I've been doing a mix of prepping for next season and trying to finish stuff from this season. And I'll go ahead and report in. I am on season 2 of 4 for Sword Art Online. I am caught up on Snafu, so I'm ready for season 3.
So season 2 of 4 of Sword Art, where does that put you?
That puts me right at the end of season 2.
I'm trying to remember what that was even about. Was that the Gun Gale one?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm starting Alicization.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to watch all Alicization.
Not too far. Yeah, you're not too far.
Yeah, I'm halfway.
I had to remember what was what, so.
Yeah. So, I'm finally making the leap to the new version of the, this the 3rd version of their whole VR setup.
Mm-hmm.
Then, yeah. So, I'm caught up on Snafu. 2 seasons in on Sword Art Online. For the firefighter show, Fire Force, I am 1/3 of the way through because I got to episode 8 and then I was about to go to episode 9 and I saw that it said 8 out of 24. And I went, oh, I didn't know Fire Force went across 2 cores.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was done, but no, there's a lot more. So I was like, okay, that's gonna have to wait. Because the next season's not even starting until like a few weeks from now. So I pushed that back so I can finish. I think that was the 3rd show for next season. Yeah, I finished Sword Art first, or season 2 of Sword Art first. Then I went to Snafu. Then I did a mixture of like Fire Force and all of the other shows because they were getting to points in their series where everybody's like, all right, the mid-season crisis is over. Let's do a bunch of talking. And I'm like, I can't handle talking right now. Let me watch something else. And they're like, okay, cool. We just finished our fight too. Let's talk some more. I'm like, no! Why is everybody talking? So I bounced around a few different shows until I was able to finally get through all of their conversations. And now I am back. So 3 seasons, 3 shows for this season. And the first show we're going to be talking about is Gleipnir.
Now, I have watched at least a small amount of this. Now, not necessarily like episodes, but I saw clips of it, which really made me want to watch it. But this was also right when I didn't have access to the other ones before. So I know this show gets crazy.
It is so good.
This show gets crazy.
It's so good and it's not over.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like in a few shows this season, or the other show this season, they're like, hey, we're going to sprinkle in a few like loose ends. And you're not really going to pay attention to them until like close towards the end. because we're gonna remind you of them, like of what we said earlier, and then we're gonna be like, all right, and here's the halfway point. See you whenever. So, yeah, this show is really, 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 really good. Man. So the two girls that are standing next to the guy in the middle, they are sisters, and they have this very deeply intertwined story of craziness. And it's like they're 2 years apart. The one with the hat is 2 years older, and at the beginning, she was basically kind of like the love interest, and she basically had power over the main character, and I don't know, it was like she was the attractive character of the season. And up until a certain point, a specific event happened, and you met the sister, and things completely switched. And it's weird, like, because I don't know their ages. So I'm like, they're in high school. So I'm like, they're young. And I don't know how to describe this. It was like, okay, cool. She's attractive. She's strong. She's basically like has this guy just toying with this guy, and I don't see any point in which like something terrible would have to happen, and he would have to like man up really like a lot to be able to kind of take control of the situation. And so basically, she's just going to be the strong lead of the series. And I was like, okay, cool. She's a cool character. Then you meet the older sister, and she's on a whole nother level. And it's kind of like, wow. It's like, she's a girl, and that's a woman. And like, not a regular one, it's like a scorned woman, where it's like, you have no chance against her. So, yeah, it was that was like one turning point as far as like how I felt about all the characters, and I don't know, it was very interesting. Would I recommend this show? Absolutely. This is one of those shows where, yes, it is a high school thing, like a show that takes place with characters that are in high school, but most of it takes place outside of high school, and the themes in this show are not like, they're not, a lot of the relationships are the way that they are because of high school, but like the main focus is not high school. So I do like how kind of like what was that one show? Dead Man Wonderland. It's like the characters, yeah, they're in high school, and this crazy thing happens, and he's basically like dubbed like a murderer who murdered his class. But most of it takes place in that like crazy prison place. So this is kind of like a show where like most of it takes place out in the woods or out in the town. And yeah, you end up slowly finding out the reason why everything's taking place. And because things are so fantastical, I have no idea where it's going. Like, they're like, well, why don't we just do this one thing and then that'll be the end? And I'm like, will it be the end? That'd be like way too easy. And somebody already did that y'all don't know. So I don't know if he tried to end it and it just didn't, but I have no solution to this problem.
I mean, from what I saw, and I know you're trying to dance around it pretty well, because it's something I do want to try to look into it myself. But from what I saw and what was like necessarily described to me, but just the actions and things that I witnessed, I'm looking at just going, wow. It just seemed like there was so much. Even the characters themselves are just looking at it completely clueless and have no idea why things are the way they are. I mean, just the clips that I saw looking at it, I'm looking at it going, okay, first off, he transforms into this animal that's some sort of creature, whatever. Okay, this is anime. We'll pass it off because of that. That's fine. But then he goes and like she gets inside of him. That's crazy enough as is. I'm like, wait, how is that? Is that? And it's not necessary. It almost seems painful to him, but not quite painful to him. So I'm like looking at it, going, okay, let's roll with that, sure. And then the whole thing about the sister shows up with the fact that she, it's that black, scary-looking, crazy-eyed mass of like, reminding me of what's her name from Hunter x Hunter. I'm just looking at her going, what? What the hell is going on? This is really crazy.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not. This whole thing has intrigued me a lot, and this was definitely one of those I probably would have watched on my own, just with the exception of I only had the ability to watch that actually thing only just recently. So, yeah, this is definitely one that I'm probably gonna. Depending upon how this next season goes, I'll definitely try to see about catching up on myself.
Yes.
And you're saying there's gonna be they didn't end it.
There will definitely be a season 2.
Okay,
basically, they kind of did like what's that zombie one? The Madhouse did, and then they didn't do a season 2. High School of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're basically like, all right, cool. We fought and we did a whole bunch of stuff. Now it's actually time to do the thing, and then ended the show. And I'm like, what?
Hopefully, it doesn't end up like High School of the Dead.
Yeah, there's like a few different teams, and you're like, they know that they know each other, and they're like, we're gonna do the thing. They're like, no, we're gonna do the thing. We've been doing the thing since before y'all even started doing the thing. And I'm like, they're like, but no, but we're gonna do the thing. And I'm like,
can both of y'all do the thing?
Somebody do the thing. And they're like, okay, episode over, season over. And I'm like, wait, they didn't do the thing.
They're supposed to do a thing. Oh, so I honestly, I'd more equate that to Attack on Titan, or the whole going into the basement thing.
Oh my God!
Like,
what season 2? They're like, we're gonna go into the basement.
We're gonna go into the basement, and everything's gonna be. We're gonna figure out everything, and everything's gonna be. And then all of a sudden, we're like at the end of season 2, and I'm like, what happened to the basement? We were talking about that like 2 episodes into it. What the fuck happened to the goddamn basement?
Like, oh yeah. I'm like, thanks.
Everyone watching is like, I remember the goddamn basement. Why can't you?
So, let's see. Who is my favorite character so far? I would not say the
male character.
Yeah, not the main guy. It's like
he seems too annoying.
It's like he's evolved over the series. But he was definitely he's broken.
He was definitely the weak one from the beginning.
Oh yeah, he was definitely. So he's made some changes, and I'm like, cool. And he would make more, but somebody's kind of like hacked his brain, so he's like, yeah, it's
okay.
The girl in the yellow shirt, I've seen a change in her. Like, she was the strong character, and then she kind of got put in her place, and then she became the strong character again. And it was like a watered down version. She was still a strong character, but I was like, I know people stronger than you. I'm not scared of you, no boy. So it's like the threat level is kind of like it's only a threat to him. Like, um, there are. Oh, I know who my favorite character is. The one character who kept seeing stuff and not knowing what in the world is going on. Did you see the first episode?
We have one of those. No, I never saw the first episode, but
Okay.
you have one of those characters who are just sitting around going, everything fantastical is going on around them. They're like, wait, what did it? Oh, I'll figure it out later. And then just everything keeps happening after that.
Yeah, so there's this one girl. She's friends with the main character, with the main guy. I don't know how long they've been friends, but they are kind of close. Mm-hmm. And I think she likes him. Okay. I think she was about to confess, or she wanted to talk to him, or something like that. And he had other stuff on his mind, so he kind of blew her off. And then a few weeks, like after a few things happened, he started coming back to class without his glasses, and he's been through some stuff, so he's like matured as a person. Mm-hmm. But then he's also troubled by what happened, so he was kind of short and like blunt because he's like, I got to get stuff done. And she goes back to talk to him, and he's just an ass, like too cool for school kind of guy. She like asks him a question, he gives her a short answer, and then like she's like, oh, okay, well, I hope you're doing okay, and like tries to talk to him. He's like, yeah, whatever, and he like walks off. And I'm like, you asshole, I don't like you. She's just trying to be nice to you. You're just treating her like dirt. And then later on in the series, what is her name? I can't remember her name, but the yellow shirt girl again. She needs to get somewhere really quickly, and she comes across the other girl, and she's like, I don't know what's going on, but I know you need to get to him. So hop on the back of my bike, and she like takes the girl to where everything's about to happen, and she's like, the girl gets on the bike, and she's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I liked him first, and then like rides off and crying and off into the sunset. I'm like, ah. So she like has these cool interactions with different characters, even though she doesn't know what's going on. But she does know that something is up because in the first episode, she sees him in his outfit jump off the building and like land around, and she's like, and somebody's like, hey, what are you doing? She's like, huh? And then she looks back and he's gone. And she's like, I think I imagined that. Then, yeah, later on, she like goes somewhere and then like she sees him in that form again and he does something. And it's just like, she just keeps coming across these really, really like super unnatural, strange scenes and kind of blows it off because there's nothing that can really explain what she just saw. So yeah, that's yeah, she's my favorite character.
Fair enough.
And let's see, what is my favorite part? The two sisters fighting, because that like put everybody in different orders as far as like the hierarchy went. But yeah, this show is awesome. I can't wait until they start up season 2 because I am fully on board. I'm a little confused because of what's all happening right now, because they're like, oh, this person's that person, but then that person's this person, and then now they're trying to do this, and I'm like, so everybody liked this person, and then this person by herself, and then something happened, and then everybody liked this person now. And then the one person who liked them before they were that person, something happened. And then now both of them something. And then now he did something. And now which one is the thing?
Just listening to you trying to like rationalize or just trying to figure out how to say this stuff without actually like saying what it is you're trying to say. And
I'm trying to say it like detailed enough to where people who do know, they're like, oh yeah, I get what he's saying. Because it's like, I don't know which one is now the thing, but then the friends are like, yeah, we're going to do the thing. And then the new people are like, yeah, we're also going to do the thing. And I don't know who's who. So I'm very confused. But yeah, I guess I'll figure it out in the next season. But yeah.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's it for Glenn. It is an awesome show. It is very the artwork is like the animation is very nice. It's I would say very modern. It's like polished, detailed, and looks very nice. Moves very well. Action scenes are great. And yeah. Check it out. All right. The next show we're going to be talking about is so they want this show or the eighth son. What?
There's more to that, but generally speaking, it is the eighth son, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if they had the English. But, oh, this is summer. I was like, man, this list is short, but the show's not here.
This show is. I don't necessarily know. Like in the beginning, I was very kind of put off with this show. I didn't necessarily know what to think of it. It is a fantasy show, so that is my wheelhouse. That is kind of like what I do, what I like to watch or listen to or whatever. But I feel like it took a while for it to kind of grow legs and get where it wanted to go, if that makes sense. But I hung in there for it. I was curious to see what was going to happen. I feel like there could have been. This is definitely one of those shows that I feel like there was more that they wanted to say about it, but there was only so much they could actually do with it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like he had his so in the beginning it's your typical isekai. He's from another world. And whatnot. And he got reborn in this world as the eighth son of nobility. In the beginning, he thinks himself, oh, I'm, part of a noble family, so I have it made. Like, I can do whatever I want because they're at this big party. He's eating all this good food. But then he realizes that it's all a sham, I guess, so to speak, because since he's the eighth son, his family has a huge family, and he's not a whole lot his family can do. There's only so much resources you can have, and he's in like this small podunk little town or whatever, which is hilarious. But he ends up finding out going through, and he was trying to get more information about the world. So, and this is where I start kind of like getting more like, oh, now I'm seeing like, this is kind of where I want to see some of these guys go to. It's like, so many of them just like, all right, I'm going to go out into the world, I'm going to learn things as I go, and this is how it's going to happen, this is da-da-da-da-da-da. Here's this guy who gets reborn as a little kid, as the eighth son of nobility, and one of the first things he does after he realizes his situation is like, Where's there a library? Is there a library? Is there books? Is there something I can learn, read, try to figure this stuff out? What am I doing? Where am I at? Da 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 da. In doing so, he ends up finding I don't even know if it was a gift for his family or something like that, where it was a way for them to show how they test your luck, see if you have the ability to use magic or da 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 da.
Okay.
And by doing this, he has a crystal ball in front of him. And he goes through all the steps and is thinking, oh, funny magic. Ah, that's funny. No one ever knows how to do that. What are you talking about? Da, da, da. And then he goes through all the steps, still like thinking to himself it's all just a joke or something like that. And it ends up being like all of a sudden that the crystal ball just shines like supernova bright. And somebody who's walking through a forest who later becomes his master senses his magic ability from that, and then goes out and tries to find him. Now, see, here's where I think that the show could have gone longer, but I think because of the constraints of the anime itself, they had to cut some things off. And there are some animes who do it really well, who don't show like, who you can look at and go, oh, they just went smoothly along with it. And then there are other ones that you look at and go, there seems to have been something missing there. Because his teacher finds him, and then he ends up agreeing eventually. And it took a little bit, which makes sense. You have this strange guy come flying out of the sky who it did save him from some, like, I think some forest creatures or whatever while he was out picking up sticks or whatever. And then he ends up eventually going, well, I'm going to teach you magic. And at first he was like, what are you talking about? And then that's when he's like, okay, fine. If you think I have the aptitude for it, then yes, teach me. And then that kind of had like a little bit of a training thing going on with him. But I feel like the time spent with that, like, it was interesting because magic works a lot of ways differently in certain, whatever you're watching or whatever you're looking at. It's not always the same. So when you have someone who's explaining magic, it's always cool because I'm like, well, what's your take on it? And they started to do that, but then they cut it off rather abruptly. And I'm like, I kind of wish you'd done a little bit more in that. But okay, I guess time constraints, sure, whatever. And then, like, he ends up, some things happen with his master. He has to do stuff in regards to that. And they kind of try to have like an emotional scene. And I'm like, I bet you if there was more going on between the two of them that you would have seen, this would have been very much more emotional. But it's really not, because I've seen him for like all of 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So you're losing some of your impact here on this. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And eventually it goes in. Then after all that occurs, it does a time skip. And now all of a sudden he's older. Now he's been practicing magic on his own. He goes out into the woods, does magic, practices, so that way no one finds out. And see, the interesting thing is the reason why he wants no one to find out is he's the 8th son. There's a line of progression for nobility where the first son inherits, and it goes down from there, depending upon what happens from the lineage going forward. But if one is shown as being more capable of doing something, as like ruling or whatever, then the order of progression no longer matters. And there are people who will try to put his name forward instead as being the next one in line to inherit, kind of thing. So he's practicing magic and not really saying anything to anyone about it in secret, because he doesn't want it to start all of a sudden being widely known of what he can do.
Because he doesn't want
He doesn't want to inherit. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it. This is another thing where it's like he's presented himself with an opportunity of like he could potentially do this, but he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. He's like, I would much rather go off on my own as an adventurer, have adventures, have a fun time, enjoy myself without being roped into all this noble BS.
Some characters that do that, don't they like change their name to where they're like nobody would know who they are?
Kind of, but unfortunately, he didn't necessarily have an opportunity to do that. Because his intention was to go to the academy and learn how to, hone his craft even more. And then that way he can get his adventurer's license and start adventuring and whatnot. And during his trip, I want to say it was during his trip there. I may be skipping over some parts. It's been a little bit. But during his trip there, he ends up, he was on an airship, and the airship gets attacked by a bone dragon. So he has to do some things, and the next thing you know, he's the hero of da 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 da. And then they find out that his teacher was actually the apprentice of the king's court magician or whatever. And that's why all of a sudden, well, they're like, wait, you got taught by him? And they're like, yeah, because then he's like, well, his one thing that he regretted was that he was never going to be able to pass on his knowledge on what he did, because he could never find anybody who could. Because in order to train someone, I guess you have to have someone who has as much capacity for magic as you do. So if your capacity is higher than the other person, you're never going to be able to teach them, because they're never going to be able to have the same effects or something. Like, they tried to explain it, but it was kind of lost in certain things, which is why I feel like they should have had more time in that regards. But anyways, that was, so when it was found out, they're like, the magician, the king's magician met up with him and is like, wait, you were taught by him? He could never find anybody who had enough potential that would be able to, he could teach. And they're like, well, and then it's found out that he himself, the king's court magician, had less potential in magic than his apprentice did. And he never knew how far his apprentice's magic potential could go. Like, there was no boundary that he could find for that. Which is why he was like, he knew that was going to be his one regret, was he was never going to be able to pass along his knowledge and magic and whatnot. So he's like, he was all of a sudden just floored by the fact that he was like, you did? Wait. Wow. Why? Who are you? So now his name became even more well-known and more, and then because the fact that he was the apprentice to this person was treated, because of how powerful he was, as nobility. He had his own household, his own holdings, which, after he had been missing for a long time, when his apprentice shows up, they're like, well, not only did you defeat the bone dragon that we had been terrorizing our skies, but you're now the apprentice of such and such, who we've been keeping his holdings on standby on, a chance of his, someone might come along or he might come back. Well, here you go. Now you have all this. And he's just sitting there going, I don't know. I don't want that. He's like, I just want to be an adventurer. They're like, well, too bad. Now you're a noble. And he's just like, no, I wanted to leave that alone. I didn't want to have a part of that. Then not only that, but then, like, before he leaves, he's trying to get out of the kingdom, going back to where, because the forest that he grew up near, where his town's at, is like, there is literally hundreds and hundreds of acres. This forest is huge, but nobody's been strong enough to be able to tame it. No one has had the ability to be able to do that.
Tame it as far as like the creatures in it, or like
to be able to not only like conquer the creatures, conquer the plant life. Like, there is so much untamed wild potential in there that no civilization has been able to get into it. So this is a huge plot of land, and now the king's like, well, at first he's like, well, I want to go adventuring into that because he's like, I trained near the forest and into like certain parts of it, but I never even ventured into like all these other places in there and all this, that, and the other thing. But before he does, the king goes, there is a quest I want to give you because he had some teammates at that time. He's like, quest I want you and your party to go on, and they're like, okay, well, it's king's request. We can't refute it. You're noble now, so there's like, well, there's protocol here. We have to take. He's like, all right, fine, we'll take care of it. Well, it's been apparently a quest that has been going on for decades that no one's been able to complete because there's been every adventurer that has gone to it has never come back. So he goes on to it with his party, and they find out why, because this whole cavern that they end up going into, well, the entrance into it that they go to teleports them to a new location. And then when they finally find out where they're at, this whole thing is like a giant dungeon maze, and every level, there's like so many levels to it, is guarded by golems, magically imbued golems, which they end up finding out that before the current king's mage, the one even before I think his grandfather's time, had hidden away all of his research and all of the things that he had been experimenting on and doing stuff with in this secret hidden cache of all this magical items and all this magical stuff. And this was the entrance in order to get to it.
Wow.
So they end up defeating it, and then they get all this stuff. Now, because this quest has been going on for so long, the reward money had piled up so much for this thing. He gets a huge amount of gold coming into him. And then this is where like I'm like, okay, this is kind of like his happy-go-lucky adventures, and he can't, he's wanting to do this, but he keeps getting dragged into doing things that he doesn't want to do, this, that, the other thing. But then it goes into more of a political thing, which I really was now I'm like hooked. Now I'm like interested in it because now the king doesn't like the next in line to his family's holdings. He doesn't think he has enough potential. And he wants somebody in place because of how close it is to that forest. He wants somebody in place of power with enough wealth, which all the money he's been getting, and enough power with how much magical potential he has to be able to actually start making their way into that forest, to actually start bringing civilization in. So they kind of set things up in a way that it kind of forces him, he's seen in a better light than his brother, his older brother, who was going to inherit, and all of a sudden all the town now is rallying for him to become the next in line for the succession. So something he had been trying to avoid from way back when he was a little kid, because I think he's still like, older teenager kind of thing, if not teens, not older teens, than at least young 20s. Now comes back as in this is now what he's got to do essentially. So, again, a lot of things happen in between. If there's people who are interested in it, again, this is not like, it doesn't grab hold of you right from the get-go, I will say. So you kind of have to give it a couple episodes to start warming up to it. But it's a slow burn. But like, if any of what I've said now at this point, as towards the end of this season of this one, is anywhere interested with you, I guarantee you're gonna like it. So it's kind of starts off as like your stereotypical anime or isekai anime fantasy kind of thing, but it does have its potential in other ways. So I will say, check it out. It's a good. If you're not necessarily into fantasy, I don't know necessarily if you'll like it overly much. It does have a little elements here and there, some comedy, a little bit of romance, because I think, of course, as these things go, I think once he defeated the Bone Dragon, he now became like a political figure, I guess, more or less. And now there were people who were like, marry my daughter, and this, that, and the other thing. So he kind of got roped into some of that as well. because he gets introduced to the Cardinal's granddaughter, and at first, she serves him tea and then leaves, and then he's like, "Oh, he's trying to be polite. He's like, "Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, she's good." He's not wrong or anything, but he's just like, "Oh, she's so good looking. Oh, she's so polite. Serving me tea and everything. Any man would be lucky enough to be able to marry your granddaughter." And he's like, "Oh, is that what you think?" He's like, "Well, would that be something that would interest you?" And he's like, "Oh, you put too much in my favor. I mean, I would be lucky enough to be able to
Oh
to
my
marry."
God! Dig that grave.
Yeah, he's just digging that grave. He's trying. Like, you see where he's trying. He's like, oh, he's so trying so hard to be nice and then to be the noble, saying all these flattering things. But on the other hand, someone who knows how to be a noble is taking advantage of the fact that he's doing these things and being like, oh, well, so since you said that, guess what? You're getting engaged to my granddaughter. And he's like, when did this happen? What happened? Why am I? Hold on. What the hell? Um, Luckily, since she is part of the clergy, that is now he has a healer on his group, but which was nice. But yeah, like I said, it's not. We're not groundbreaking things here. Don't get me wrong. This is not like, oh my god, this is absolutely top tier fantasy that you can get, because there are definitely other ones out there that are way better. But have I seen worse? Absolutely. Of course I've seen worse. There are some fantasy out there that I would not touch again with a 10-foot pole. This one, if they come out, I don't know if they will or not, but if they come out with another season for it, I will watch, because now I'm invested. Now I know the characters. Now I'm rooting for the guy to actually, like, hopefully things work out for him, because there's kind of these situations where he gets into, you're like, you may be an all-powerful wizard, but you could potentially founder, and yeah, you have bad times. Trust me, that might happen. So, um, yeah, I definitely enjoyed the show. I will say the times that you see him wielding his magic, I think were the best and most entertaining times above all, to me at least, because he has, like a lot of them do, but I guess this goes back to just my old being a kid at heart kind of thing, and you see flowery big spells magic happening, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, yay, I love it. And then as far as characters go,
Yeah, I was like, who's your favorite?
I guess I'd have to say the main character. I mean, all the other side characters are interesting and noteworthy. I will say the most interesting side character that he came across was once he first became a noble, when the king granted him a title and everything. Immediately, as he's leaving or getting about to get into a carriage and leaving the castle, there's this spearman at the gate who's trying to show off his moves because he wants to become a retainer to him. And this person follows him around for like the next, like, he'll just randomly show up in like some episodes where he so wants to be his retainer, and he's like, I don't want to have anything, because again, he doesn't want to be a noble, doesn't want to be put in these positions or whatever, but he's being put in these positions.
Yeah.
And then when he finally realizes he wants to go out on an adventure, well, he has his master's holdings in the capital, in the castle. Well, he has to have somebody who he can trust to look after it, somebody who knows they're gonna take care of it and look after his best interests. Well, all of his party members are gonna go with him, so who does that leave? Everyone kind of stops and looks around and goes, "What about that spear guy who's been trying to become your retainer for the longest time?" He's like, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to put myself through that? So he goes up to him and he's like, Okay, so I know I've kind of been avoiding you for the most part, but I'm kind of want to become, retainer, da da da, and I didn't know what you think about that. And eventually, he just looks at him and goes, he actually starts crying, and he becomes his retainer, and it's the funniest thing because he's actually like one of his best people. Did we lose things? I might have lost him. Did we lose it? I think we lost him. I believe we did. Well, everyone, apologies. This looks like he lost connection on his end, but I still have connection on mine. So, well, there went his whole camera thing. No, Big D, Taco.
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Who does that leave?
Okay, so going back to what I was saying, this guy who he's been dodging and wanting to be his retainer, he ends up making his like keeper of his household essentially in the capital.
Uh-huh.
And at first, like he thought it was going to be a bad idea, but when he actually starts working with him and actually like trusting him with things, he actually becomes one of his best allies in the freaking capital because he starts like apparently he has connections politically with his family, so things are starting to go on, and he's having him gather information. And like some of the nobles are trying to work against him, so he's getting information about which nobles they are, so he can try to handle like a whole bunch of things happen with that. And I'm like,
Okay.
boy, if you'd have actually like trusted him from the get go, you'd have had a little bit of an easier life going through this now, wouldn't you? But I get it. I would have probably done the same thing. So,
Cool.
but yep. Like if I said like again because of the fact that it's so comedic, and then the fact of like he was so annoying at first, and then becomes such an integral part of things later on.
Mm-hmm.
As far as side characters go, he will always stand out in my mind. As will the King's Mage because he did some things later on too. But yeah, no, like I said, good story all around. A little bit of a slow burn, but if you're willing to put up with it, it goes quite a ways. So,
And what is your favorite part?
again, I want to say just like the okay, so no, I can actually probably say at one point when during his training in the capital, he gets put in because of the fact that he's now the quote unquote dragon slayer, the title that he was given or whatever. He gets put into a competition that he wasn't necessarily aware of at first, and realizes that this competition rather quickly is not one that he could probably do too well in because he can't use magic. It's a physical competition.
Oh, those rules are he can't use magic.
He can't use magic. Yeah, he can't use magic during this. So he tries really hard to train, trying to wield a sword, trying to get himself good in that regards. And the magician's there, and the other one in the picture behind near the king, the yellow spiked hair, kind of reminds me of Armstrong in a way from Full Metal Alchemist.
Uh-huh.
He's a magician as well, but he's also a very physical person. And both of them are waiting up in the stands, and both of them kind of know. They're like, he goes off and goes, "Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start go to my first match or whatever." And they're like, "Good luck. We'll see you in a bit." And sure enough, like within I don't know minutes, it seems like, because all of a sudden you see the very start of the match, and it just cuts away, and next thing you know, you see the two sitting there in the stands in their own little box seat or whatever, and next thing you know, they turn around, they go, "Oh, that was rather quick. How long did you last? Like a minute, maybe two?" It's like, damn, that's a burn.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm the most powerful mage there ever has been. Can't do shit with a sword.
Yeah. That's like uh King from
Yep.
Seven Deadly Sins.
He's almost the exact same way. So powerful when using magic, but the minute he has to get physical, it's like, nope. Mm-mm. So, yep, that was an interesting part. So,
It's like a pretty interesting show. All right. The third show we'll be talking about today is Kami no To, or Tower of God.
Tower of God. Now, obviously, we discussed before. You are you current on this one? You're all 13 episodes so far.
Yes.
I'm on episode 10.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk with Taco here, that's the reaction I get. Because I told him, I said I've not been really keeping up with it, but I've been told that Rachel in it people don't like, and I think the episode that I'm on is the episode that probably explains that. I see Kiki over there has been. Okay, I guess Kiki's been watching this one too, huh? So apparently there's that. Um, but yeah, I mean, okay, so nixing that as part of it, because obviously I can't necessarily talk about further than that because I haven't watched further than that. But nixing that, so far I am really liking the show. I want to say this is just an absolutely outstanding show, and I'm really happy for that to being the case, and I'm really happy to see its popularity because I know this was originally a web-based manga.
Mhm.
So the fact that it's actually doing as well as it is makes me happy
Yes.
because now that's allowing others to be able to put their work into the limelight in that regards as well. So,
as the show goes, about the show overall, I do like the art style. It reminds me, I think I had talked about this before, that old school Lords of the Rings movie.
I could see that. Yeah,
It has that like sketchy kind of look to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that. I really like the music mixing. The intro is a little bit too pop for it, but the like during the show, like the certain music cues they match, like they hit perfectly, they match perfectly. I really like the way that the show is presented.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very well put together show. This is another show that like pulls me into the world like fully.
Oh yeah.
I would say Glepner, the show that we talked about first, that show pulled me in completely. Like I was just like, man, we gotta do something about these coins. um, there's another show that I watched and I didn't really get fully pulled into the world, but this show, like 100%, like I'm in the tower. I'm like, God, I'll make sure I don't use up all my points because we got stuff to do. And then all the different challenges. Like I was curious. At the beginning there was the one trial where he had to fight the steel dragon, and then it turned into a battle royale where you had to be one of the last 200 people alive. And then it turned into team based, and then it turned into a giant team thing, and like just the way, like all the different trials where you had to adapt, like, so I do like how they kept everything interesting.
It's interesting in that regards too, because you would think with how they keep presenting it that there's a reason why you have to do the things that you do in the way that you do them. Like, you're trying to get to the top of the tower, as they keep saying, yada yada yada. But if that's the case, like, can multiple people get to the top of the tower? Because then why are we doing this team-based thing? Like, what's the point in regards to that? And, you know, the whole thing about the princesses. Now, this may be explained in some of the episodes I haven't seen yet, right, at this point, because I haven't. But now I'm looking at going, well, what's the whole thing about this princesses? Is like, is that the reason why some of them reach the top of the tower and they become the princesses of this person or whatever and get one of these weapons? You know, there's a lot of, like, this is what you're saying. There's a lot of story lore going along behind this that is just really fascinating.
Yes.
Like, you're looking at it just going, what the hell is this all about?
Yeah, especially with the princesses. Like, I thought that basically they were chosen and then they were a princess. But later on, you find out that there's more to that. Like, all the princesses aren't on the same level. And
like, why were the whole rule about the whole, like, falling in love thing?
It's like just like putting what I think on it. Because I'm not sure what the I can't remember if they said it. It just went past my head. But the purpose of the princesses, like, why are some princesses in the tower, like in the trials of the tower, and some princesses outside of the trials of the tower? Like, what are the purposes of the princesses? That part I don't know. So,
well, I mean, like, in regards to, like, as far as the princesses and the whole thing about that one who is only a princess because her mom was a princess.
Yeah.
And now she's trying to get revenge because all the other princesses banded together and killed her mom.
Yeah. So
that's because her mom can't love anyone. I'm like, there's a lot going on here with regards to that.
Yeah. So that I started getting a little bit loud. So yeah, I don't really know what the purposes of the princesses are, but if they're supposed to be like this team that we're supposed to, like, uphold something, then I can see why maybe the king is like, they can't fall in love because they need to be focused, and if they end up having children, like, that may become more of a priority than their duty.
Or is it the fact that the king's just an asshole and just said that you can't love anyone else more than you love me?
Yeah, so
I mean, there could be a lot of ways you could look at this now. It's like, but if that's the case, if there's something else going on that the princesses need their focus on, one, why are essentially two of them being able to climb the tower right now?
That's exactly.
It's like, well, now isn't that their focus? Why is there, and why is the one who seems like she was able to freely come and go as she pleased and gave that weapon to the main character right off the get-go, why is she, like, seeming like she's stuck now? Like, if she's a princess, shouldn't she kind of have, like, shouldn't the princesses have free run of the tower? Like, if they're the princesses of the king, and the king, I don't know, there's more of, like, a hierarchy. There's more things going on here. What is the correlation between the tower and them? What is the correlation between, like, there's a lot of things going on right now. I don't even know how the outside world is. Like, you see all those people that were there that qualified for going into the next round from the deathmatch supreme thing that they did. You saw all of them together. Like, some of them have katanas, some of them have weird bladed weapons and whatnot. Others of them have rifles.
Yeah.
Like, what
Spears.
time frame are we looking at here? Like, is this like so far into the future that guns and everything exist, but now because of the way things are, people have had to use knives and swords as well? You know, it's like there's so much going on.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like what's going on inside the tower is important, but I also feel like what's going on outside the tower is also equally important.
Yeah. Because I'm like, what, what standing does the tower have for the rest of the world?
Yeah.
I'm like, is it like a badge where you're like, I've climbed the tower. I'm a certain level person. I can get these perks.
Yeah.
Or is it like some crazy dude made this weird tower over there and people just keep going in there and dying? Some people make it out. They're weirdos. Like, I don't
Yeah, I
really
mean,
know.
like we all know, like in that very beginning, that deathmatch thing that they were in, that people were dying. That's true. But the other part of that is the very next one they did, where you had to cross the wall that one made,
Hmm.
because he's like, well, there are too many. One, why is there too many? Like you set the rules of the previous game saying only this many can pass. If you needed to have less than that, why didn't you set it lower? You
Did
know
he
what I
say
mean?
like too many of a certain rank or just too many like quantity?
I thought he just said too many. And I'm like, well, then why didn't you like, unless it's because not he wasn't moderating the previous one and someone else moderated that and he took over from the next on the next stage and then said, "Oh, there's too many. We're going to set up this other one real quick just so I can thin you out even further." And
Which
why are we
makes
thinning them out?
total sense because of how everything played out later on in the series.
Yeah. But again,
Because
it's like, but then here's my other question that was leading up to that. If we killed people in that first one, and in his first one that he did, there was a real possibility of him dying. So like we already have two right from the get go. The first two tests that we see are about death. People are dying. If his whole thing with that wall was a third one, did the ones who didn't pass that just get killed? There were some who didn't pass that. Obviously.
yeah,
Did they just get killed?
at a certain point, people could just be like, "I'm going home," and they just leave.
Well,
So
but then you had that one that was getting all pissed off, the one who had the rifle saying he was going to kill the other dude, kill the moderator or whatever.
uh,
And he came through and showed him the power of the whatever the tower has or whatever.
yeah,
And then he's all on the ground complaining like he can't go. He says, "I can't go back. I risked everything for this. I can't go back." And I'm like, that to me is what's making me go, what's happening on the outside? What is the world like right now where this is all going on? Are we just in total chaos? Is that what the world outside the tower is?
well, Bam was in a hole, so
But then you saw
yeah.
the other lizard princess. She was living peacefully on a riverbank,
Well, that's because her mom was a princess.
but she couldn't have been in a good place because didn't wouldn't they have monitored and figured out she was pregnant and had a kid? Like they'd have
She
probably
got
killed her right from the get go.
she basically got banished to that like lakeside house.
Well, then I'm like, well, then like you said, Bam's in a hole in the ground, freaking hole or whatever, and she was banished to, or she got secluded into a riverbank home. Like,
Yeah,
if you looked at the way Bam was, I'm like, is because she's talking about like a sky or whatever, and I'm like, well, yeah, I can see that because you're living in a freaking hole in the ground. Is there a sky even? Why are you living in a hole in the ground? Why were you there to begin with?
yeah.
You
Where
know,
the
I'm like,
rich?
is our world that screwed up that there are people having to live underground, and yet there are some people who don't have to live underground? Are we even on the same world anymore? Does the
Yeah,
tower connect like multiple worlds to each other?
that would make sense because of for it to be a tower and how some level. Well, I don't know. It's like how big is the tower? Because some levels
I don't know.
they're like, all right, everybody's like 100 kilometers away from each other or something like that. Is that the right show? I don't know. I may be mixing up different shows, but yeah, everybody was like spread out in these giant fields, and
Yeah.
they all have to fight. And then the next level is like, okay, we're in this like one little pool. We got to fight this dinosaur. And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, well, and then you have that other level of the tower that where the two princesses dueled each other, kind of more or less,
oh
where they were on
yeah,
those floating platforms. But you
yeah,
look down, you're like, that's a big ass drop.
yeah.
That's a big ass, and I'm like,
And then
but
for your
then
next trial,
they,
outside the window, you have this dome thing.
yeah. I'm
And
like,
I'm like, that's not a dome.
what even is this tower? Like,
Yeah.
there are
Hey, so
so many, there are so many questions that I want to know. And honestly, as much as I'm interested in Bam and his whole thing, I'm like, I honestly want to know more about everything else than I do about Bam. I know we're following him and his adventure and his story, but I'm like, I kind of want to know more about what else is going on, why these things are the way they are. Like, I get we're taking it from the perspective of Bam, but kind of don't care about him. I want to do more about the rest of this stuff going on.
I want to know more about the alligator dude.
He likes to fight.
Well, I'm like, is he weird even amongst the lizard people? Or are they all just like, yeah, yeah, yeah? It's just a bunch of crazy guys.
Honestly, it's like, and where are we at with lizard people? Are we are we on Earth or are we on a different planet? Like, what is this whole thing about? You know what I mean? Like, they keep making it to where like we're looking at humans. You look at Rachel, you look at Bam, you look at the the kid. Like, all of them look human, and that's what we relate them to. But somehow I don't know if we're actually on Earth or even a pseudo form of Earth.
Yeah, because it's like even as far as the lizard people go, you have people who are like the gator guy, but then you also have people who are like the princess guy, where she's just green and has a tail.
Well, and then there was that one dude that Bomb came across like right from the get go, and he
Mm-hmm.
pulled his sword on that giant dude with like the dome head, alien looking dude,
With
and
like
I'm
the
like,
rows of eyes around his head,
yeah, I'm
with
like,
him being like the cook
what the
and
frick
all
are
medics,
you?
which is so weird.
I'm like, what the frick are you? And then look, even from the very beginning, the whole like the keeper of the tower,
Oh yeah,
bunny rabbit dude. I'm like,
yeah,
what the fuck are you? And the steel dragon he has to face too, that's in the water that looked like, but he ends up walking out there like it's not water. I'm very confused about that too, by the way, after I thought about it.
yeah. That
Like,
happens a few more times, and I'm like, I guess it's not water.
but at the same time, you saw the steel dragon going around like floating and swimming around like it was in water.
Yeah,
And then when he killed it, the blood went everywhere like it was water. But
yeah.
Bam was just able to like run, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm
It's
like,
late.
where do physics go? Where are we at with this? What is even going on? Like, there are so many questions. The weapons that the princesses have.
Oh
Why are
yeah.
they the way they are? What is the deal with them?
What's the story about the lady inside the sword?
Yeah. Why does she only like guys?
Cute guys.
You guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if that's the case, then why was she put in the sword? Because if they're only given to princesses, she's never gonna like anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's only girls.
That also reminds me of Seven Deadly Sins with like the lady in the sword.
Oh. Yeah. But I mean, like, so many things that I'm looking at just going, there's so many weird things going on. And don't get me wrong, Bam is the center of a lot of them.
Mm.
But I feel like when we learn a little bit more about what goes on with him and certain aspects and what he's doing, it makes me question then things that are going on elsewhere.
Mm.
And I'm like, well then because it's, as far as story crafting goes, and I've dealt with this, it's like once you make something a certain way in a story, if you've created a brand new world, if you make it to where somebody can snap their fingers and create a fire or something like that, that's now a law in the world. That's now a possibility. It's now a thing. And that carries certain weight because now you have to question, what if other people can do that? What is the cause that makes them be able to do that? What is it that, is there a way that can be duplicated, not in the same way that it's being done by the same person? Like so many different things that you have to condone with that. And with this anime, I'm looking at it going, so many, every time we get something answered, now it's just like, now I have so many more questions.
Mm.
It's like I get those blades, that the weapons that they get, I don't know if all of them are blades, and I know that they're all based upon a month, though there's a 13th one. So
Yes.
there's an extra one.
Because there's like, on the months. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because they're all like something April or something May or whatever. Like they're all based upon that some part of their name has to do with a month. One, why is that the case? Two, why is there actual? Because if his blade has a woman spirit lady inside of it, is that the manifestation of the sword itself, or is that something that was put into the sword? And if that's the case, what is the other weapon that the girl with the lizard girl is being carrying around with? Does that also have a freaking some sort of spirit inside of it as well? Yeah, I'm like, so many questions that I want answers to. And I feel like the more I'm going through it, I'm like, the more I'm going to get frustrated because I'm like, you're answering some things, but you're not answering everything. And then the answers you do give me just lead me to other things. I'm like, what the hell? Why is that the case? So, but all in all, yes, if anyone could look at or think about this, is as frustrating as that can be, I also mark that as one of the better things in regards to anime. If an anime is making you think that deeply about it and being able to be like, how is this even possible? How is it doing this? Why are we, like so many things going on?
Mm.
That to me is so good in regards to that.
Mm.
So I look forward to learning about why the things are the way they are.
Yes.
And how it proceeds further. So I think this is why I just kind of took some time off of it because I was just like, let me build up a little bit on this so that way I can actually like feel like I'm getting my enough information at once to that way I get digested out and all that without having to feel like, why? What happened? No, what happened? It's like cliffhangers galore. This show is nothing if anything but cliffhangers galore. So
oh yes. Yeah, I'm actually upset about this show because of the cliffhanger.
See, that's why I'm glad I left it on the part that I did. I'm like, you know what? I'm good right now. I can catch back up on it in a minute, and I'll let it go. I'll leave it there for a little bit. I'll let some episodes build up, and then hopefully by the time we get to the next one, I'll be like, all right, it's a cliffhanger, but it's not one I'm upset with, so I'm good.
I really want to know your opinion of episode 12.
I'll get there.
Yeah. So, would you recommend this show? It's kind of like in the fantasy genre, but it's like a weird fantasy. It's kind of like
Honestly, this is one that I would recommend to anybody.
Okay.
This is definitely one of those that I think, to me, years down the line, this is going to be one of the ones that gets held up with some of the other big name animes, I feel like.
Okay.
Because I feel like, depending upon how the rest of the season goes and what they do with it continuing forward, it could very well become, one of the ones that when someone goes, hey, I want to watch anime, you'd be like, well, here you go, watch Tower of God.
Um, yeah, I would. I think for me, I would recommend it for people who are like into like Lord of the Rings type of fantasy, because it's I don't know. It's like there's trials. It's like an epic journey.
Yeah, but there are so many things in this that are modernized too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
just
I just think like the overall like
looking at the characters and
feel.
everything, their look is so modernized. Yeah, you have a giant lizard with like armor or whatever, but the clothing that they all wear, I'm like, you could find someone even now walking around wearing something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, like a like briefcase that copies stuff and
yeah, that blew my mind.
yeah.
Not only does it copy stuff, but it can hold stuff too, indefinitely.
Yeah.
And not just small things either. Really big things like people.
Yes. Which was cool because the briefcase got stuck and he's like, come on. And I'm like, oh, those poor people. They're just like, we're just chilling out wherever the space does inside of that bag. And all of a sudden they get hit with this wall of magic. But let's see. Did it meet your expectations for like kind of like the hype that was kind of built up? People were like, oh my god, this show, and like the
did.
beginning.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it kind of went on the path that I thought it was going to go to. Also, as far as like different trials going through a tower.
But the way they do it is so original to me.
Yes. Yes.
Because this storyline is one that we've seen in a lot of times before when someone has to go do different levels and each level gets progressively harder as you go along. But
yeah,
that's nothing new. But what they have to do, and then the fact that you think that, the end goal for most of them is being able to get their wish granted on what it is that they want most. But if that's the case, that's why I said the whole thing about teaming up confuses the hell out of me. Because I wouldn't imagine that you'd want to have, 5, 6, 7 people at the end teamed up and being able to get their wishes granted?
Well, it's like because how diverse everything is, like the world, the people, like everybody's background and everything, I kind of feel like their wishes won't really cross.
Really?
Yeah, like if it was like based on like modern Earth, and there was a team with like a high school group of high school students, and they're like, do your wishes, and they're like, those wishes will probably cross paths or interfere with each other. But because everybody's like so diverse and different species and all that kind of stuff, I feel like it wouldn't cross too much.
I don't know. I feel like there's just certain things that you just wouldn't want to see done. And maybe this is because I'm used to the stereotypical in this sort of situation that whoever reaches the top floor is just a singular person.
Okay.
Like my expectation is that at the end of it, Bam will be the only one to reach the top floor. That's my expectation. But I'm solely basing this expectation off of what I know from previous things that have done something similar to this. Is that by the time you get to the very end, it's the main character and solely the main character that will reach the top.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, if I'm basing it upon what I think from having watched at least what I've watched of the anime, I would almost say, and especially thinking about what anime does, that it would probably be like him, Rachel, and then maybe one of the other princesses and someone else who will reach the top.
Okay. So like his crew would kind of like sacrifice themselves to make sure he gets through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can see the lizard guy doing it. I don't necessarily know about
Earrings.
Name. Blue turtle.
Yeah. Oh, the whole turtles and lizards thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, he has to be from a different world, and like the lizard men are like the higher, more evolved species, and then there's like lizards and turtles.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I literally don't know. And then you think the girl or the big warrior that the lizard guy has been facing off against all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looks like a straight demon.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you? What are you? Why do you exist?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's there's a lot going on.
And then he just left all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where are you going? Okay. See you later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite character so far? The lizard guy.
Lizard guy. He's a good character. Don't get me wrong. So far, just what I've watched up to. Well, I'm on 10, so I've watched only the first 9 episodes. But having watched what I've watched, I think, even though I can't remember his name, Blue Turtle is probably one of my favorite characters.
Okay.
There's a lot going on there. And, like, we've seen a little bit about his past and what he's had to put up with and the reasons, kind of the reasonings why he's there. We don't know that 100% for sure. But I kind of know the reasons why he's there, and I can almost make guesses about the rest of it. I still want to learn more about it, though. But his tactics, his abilities, and his attitude are just so good. Just so good. I mean, his whole thing when they had that bonus game where everyone was trying to get into the seat and get the crown or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, that was so amazing with him. I'm like, dude, first you find out about the briefcase. I'm not going to go into details about that, but you find out about the briefcase. Then you find out the deals he made going through there, because all of a sudden, he's like, well, they're going to fight for us, and I'm like, how do you know that? What is it that you know that we don't know? And then I realized what he did, and I'm like, that's amazing, dude. And then the fact that he did misdirection is like he gets the crown first, and first off I'm like cool because he opened up his bag and caused a giant windstorm, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then he causes the confusion he does by placing the crown in his bag, duplicating it, and throwing it out there for them to fight amongst each other as he just sits back and watches, and I'm like, oh, come on, man, that's just. Holy crap. Like my thought on that was I'm like, well, you're sitting in the seat. So you already know whoever gets the crown is going to have to come to you in order to sit in the seat. So I'm like, already you're putting yourself in a point of power in that regards, because that means they have to get past you in order to make that happen. Yeah. And I'm like, that's pretty damn cool. Then you realize what he did in the first place, and I'm like, oh, that's even cooler. You didn't even give them the opportunity to get the crown. You just made it seem like they were. And I'm like, damn, man. Talk about, like, just, freaking tactics and such. And then that whole, I didn't see necessarily the whole conclusion to that, but I do know that whole game that he was putting up when they split into 2 groups and were doing the you have to capture or whatever. Yeah, that game. Yeah. The fact that he, makes it sound like at the end of that one episode when his team went first and he was the captain and in charge, and he's sitting there at the table sounding like he's so distraught over the fact that they lost or whatever. And then he's like, and then he has that little smile, and I'm like, oh, you planned something, didn't you? And then you find out, and I'm like, oh, you did plan something. Oh, because you're making sure, even though you're not on the same team as Bum, you're still making sure he's going to. I'm like, all right, dude, you know what? Hats off to you, man. Hats off to you. So, complicated character, brilliant strategist, great at fighting still, even though you wouldn't look at him in comparison. But, I mean, even his little fight that he did with that one guy while they were in the throne room originally, and I'm like, man. Freaking opened up his case, had a bunch of his knives come flying up and coming down. And I'm like, that's scary as hell. But the way he did it seemed so natural for him. And I'm like, yeah, okay. If I had to say, and honestly, it's just because Bomb's the stereotypical character. He's the stereotypical main character. He's got some sort of extra special power to him or whatnot, which I will say, if I were to say one of my favorite parts, that was probably it right there, was when the dude put up that wall, pushed everyone back with that water, and it said, well, now you have to get through the wall. And here's Bam over the other side going like, I'm still over on this side. Do I need to go back?
Yeah.
And you first you think, oh, he just didn't get knocked back, but the fact that Blue Turtle looked at him and went, he was standing right next to us. He should have gotten pushed back along with everybody else. There's no way he wouldn't have gotten pushed back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. I love when I have that little showy moments like that. That makes me smile. That makes me happy. But the rest of his personality, I'm like, oh. Like, why? I get it, the reason why you're pining over your girl there, but come on. I already know she's not good enough for you, as I'm sure everyone else is probably going to say, and that your feelings for her are never going to be reciprocated because she's probably just using you or whatever. But I'm just like, all right. So.
Yeah. That whole like using dynamic, it reminds me of like Forrest Gump, where it's like, I always care about Jenny, no matter what happens.
No matter what happens, no matter how horrible she treats you, or how much she tries to kick you to the curb.
Yep. And yeah, that's the okay. So that's one thing that like stuck out to me in this season. I like the Gator guy because he's just a big old softy. Like
who loves his chocolate bars.
Oh my God. It's like that's the first time he's ever had chocolate and he's like, oh my God.
Not only does he love his chocolate bars, he's probably going to be diabetic by the time he gets done with the tower.
And it's weird because it's like even the other big dude was just like it's like not only is he always eating chocolate, he turned chocolate into a competition. He's like, let's see who can eat the biggest
another bowl.
So yeah, and he's like unapologetically him, like 100% doesn't care what's going on. Like there's certain moments where everybody's like awkward around each other, or like there's this weird like moment and he'll just step up and like give a little bit of unexpected wisdom in his own little simple way. And I'm like, all right, I like him. So and to flip this question, is there a character that you dislike?
Well, I have a feeling that eventually my idea about this is going to go towards the main female character in all this, as I feel like that's been something that's been at least somewhat spoiled for me in regards to that. But
the whole world is like, great job!
yeah. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure eventually I'm going to say that. But without necessarily thinking in regards to that, if I were to just remove um her from the picture entirely, I would say the next person that I might have an issue with is the dude that was with Bomb that was training. I don't remember his name. He was kind of a side character.
Oh, the one with the one horn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I get he probably has a pretty tragic background and past.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that he tried to put, like, from the beginning, he tried to put up such a bravado in front of his quote unquote partner of saying, well, this is what you do for the week. And it's like, even his partner, after he went into his room, was like, week? Because he's like, he knew he was having a hard time.
Yeah.
And then just that whole, like, he felt threatened by Bomb. And I'm like, of all the people in this freaking tower, for you to feel threatened by, Bomb should be the last.
Yeah.
He's never, other than that one girl who ended up knocking out she who must not be named and injuring her at that one point. And he apologized for that. Like, he ended up using his ability, wounded her, and he felt bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if that's the case, you saying you feel threatened by him and then trying to justify your actions on taking hostages and doing what it is that you're doing because of that, you're just an ass. So to me, that right now, obviously that would probably change in the next episode or two going forward. But for right now, that's kind of where my most hated character is, because I'm just looking at him going, you had no reason for it. You had no reason for it whatsoever. Obviously, your person with you, your teammate, knows you're just as weak, if not weaker, and all that. And I'm just looking at going, had you asked for help? Because then he's looking at the stuff that his partner was doing, the guy in the blanket was doing for Bomb, and he's just like, well, you said to help the weak or whatever, and I'm like, and you could easily ask him for help as well, but now you've put up such a bravado in front of you that now you're going to seem like the jackass that you are when you come and ask him for help. So now you're not going to do it. And I'm like, guys like that just annoy me.
Yeah.
They really do. So if he wasn't part of this whole thing, if that wasn't even an option as far as characters go, or I hadn't seen up to that point, honestly, the most I don't necessarily hated character, just the most annoying one would have been Bomb himself. Because I'm just like, dude, come on. I hate characters who are like that, who are just like, oh, I can't do anything. And I'm like, you're not necessarily applying yourself, but sure, let's think that you can't do anything. And I'm like, whatever. I can't take them seriously. Like, things that Blue Turtle does, or even Lizard Guy does, and I'm like, I can take it seriously because you're putting your life on the line. You understand what's going on, and you're doing the best that you can do and putting yourself out there for it. Bomb's having to kind of be handheld.
Yeah. And
I'm
like if there are moments where you kind of get outdone, kind of like with the spear test, where they're like, you got to hit this thing that's like a mile away. And then the one dude's like, boom, poof, like in one shot, and like it shot the gator dude. And he's like, this is some bullshit. And he turned around and like worked hard, and they came back and won. And I'm like, yeah. Bomb doesn't have that.
No.
Everything just kind of falls into his lap.
He doesn't have that drive, and he doesn't, other than having plot no jutsu, on his side. He has no actual ability himself to take care of himself. You know, had Blue Turtle not come across him during the first thing he had to go do, he probably wouldn't have gotten through it.
Yeah.
You know, had the princess and her steward or whatever came across him in the first episode, not given him what he has now, he would not have made it past that first one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like I said, he's, to me, I don't necessarily bore that on hatred. The one horn dude, I do kind of bore that on hatred, just because that's just being an asshole. That's being a douche to me. I hate that. I do hate the fact that Bomb's character is the way he is, but I'm sure there's probably a reason for it, so I'll leave it alone. Because, I mean, you're like, you know, you think to yourself, like, well, don't you have common sense? What, are you born in a hole? I'm like, well, technically he might have been born in a hole. I don't know. We only saw him when he was trying to claw his way up out of the hole.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think, like, who were the other antagonists that were, like, kind of a thorn in the side? It's like things have kind of been smoothed over with, like, the princesses, where they were a threat. And kind of
so the princesses were always kind of a threat. The reptile princess was kind of a threat and also kind of made it a little more challenging because she took the sword away from him. Yeah. Not like he was necessarily doing a lot with it, but she did take the sword away from him.
Yeah.
Which was kind of annoying.
The sword was kind of like doing its own thing.
Yeah.
Which like, who did the sword see? And it was like, just start going crazy.
Well, the sword, like the way they did it on that one, seemed like it recognized the other sword.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, if that's the case, why are they all part of a set? I'm like, it honestly seems like they hate each other. Like, why would you say, oh, these are all part of the same set? And you're like, yeah, but you see the way that one's acting to that one over there? Holy shit. Yeah, I don't like that one at all. You know? I don't know. Either way,
yeah,
it just goes along with the whole thing of just like, I want to know more. I want to know the reasons behind this, why they are the way they are, what's going on, you know? Is there even a wish that's going to be granted by the time you get to the end of the tower? Is that even a thing? Or do they just tease people with that?
Oh, one thing I'm very disappointed by is just like how you mentioned earlier, how the one person didn't know how the other person handled the test. And when he got the results, he's like, this is too many people. Who's in control of these quests? Because it seems like they're just hot, like it's just a bunch of substitutes. They're like, oh, hey, guys, did y'all know that there's a tower thing going on this week? And he's like, oh, what? Since when? Who scheduled that? They're like, yeah, it's like starting in like a couple hours. And they're like, okay. The first test is what you call it? Go call Bunny Dude. And he's like, oh, okay. And like he handles that, and he's like, okay, now we got to call somebody to handle like all these other tests, and like it's just completely cobbled together and not really like. Yeah, they just don't really.
Well, gel. I mean, and again, it almost seems like what's the sequence of operation here? Because it seems like one of the moderators has been more of a focal point. Like he's been the one with them for the most, whereas any other moderators that come in kind of have just been like well, maybe he's busy, so they just decided to take over for this one.
Yeah.
You know?
One redheaded dude. He's like, oh, I get to do the tower today? I never get to do the tower.
And everyone's like, and there's a reason for that. Because you suck at it.
Yeah. What is your favorite part so far?
I mean, I'd have to say the whole thing with that his, I guess technically speaking, his third test, when the whole wave thing hit him, or from the moderator.
Oh yeah.
But he still stayed there. Yeah, that was probably my favorite part, just because it was so random,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it gave that was like the first hint that anyone watching, just based upon what I saw, would have been able to figure out that there's something more to Bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here. So now I'm like, now that intrigues me more because I'm like, as a character, now I'm looking at him going, well, how did you do that? You know, what was what was your reasoning behind it? It's like so many questions start going through your mind about this character and like, does he have more power than he's leading on? Does he know about the power he's leading on? Was that the reason because of the power that he has? Was that the reason why he was down in that hole to begin with? Yeah, I was just yeah.
Okay. Mine was the princess versus princess fight, because you could tell that there's been animosity building up for a long time, and there's never really been a one-on-one, like a chance for them to be one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And the I guess the older, well, I guess it's like the princess and like her sister's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
like her niece, basically.
Well, then that makes me wonder how old they are because if her daughter looks to be the same age as them, did they become princesses later on, or were they princesses all of the entire time?
And also, it's like she's like a lizard lady, so there may be something different with that too. But it's like they fight like the one girl didn't like she's like I know you want to fight me, but not now. Like I got stuff to do. And then there was this one chance. She's like, here's my opening. It just attacked her head on. And how they were like evenly matched ish. Yeah. So where like they would fight, and then she's like, no, and one would get the upper hand, and the other one would get the upper hand, and then they both like tripped each other up, and it's like, it was cool because I still like at certain like, yeah, I don't know, it's like it kind of like set everybody's like power level at a certain point where it's like, okay,
I can see that.
They just needed to like fight it out, and now they're not like as as angry at each other as they were. But yeah, I did like that fight, and then also like not knowing how far down the bottom of the hole was, because they look down and they're like, wait a minute, if I fall down there, am I gonna die? And they're like, no, you won't die. I'm like, wait, but that
you won't die. It's not good, but you know. Yeah, because that really made me wonder. I'm like, they're going, how are they not like seriously injuring themselves on this? Especially when both of them go over the edge the way they did. I'm like, how are y'all not like killing each other here? What is? But then again, it's like they didn't have a problem with them killing each other before, so like, why would they have a problem with killing each other now? I don't know.
Yeah. That was my favorite part, because I don't know. It was too much tension. I'm like, y'all just need to like box a bit and like kind of get all that out.
Just, put on the gloves. Go mano a mano against each other. You'll be fine.
But yeah, I need to find out what's happening next, because I am very upset at what's happening right now.
How the last episode ended?
The last short answer, yes. I'm not gonna elaborate. Oh, wait till you get there.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the Tower of God is very good. You should check it out.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. The last show we're going to be talking about is Princess Connect Redive.
This is all you.
Yep. This is Ray Ray's most anticipated show of the season.
Aha.
This show she actually can stay awake in. So take a fantasy show. and make a lot of elements of it like super colorful and kind of bubbly. And you have Princess Connect read that. It is basically like the type of fantasy that I can get into because it's not like for reals fantasy. It's like it's taking place in a fantasy setting, but they're not really doing anything that like a lot of fantasy shows would do. Because basically, this group of 4 got together and they're like, we're gonna make a guild. And I'm like, yeah, guild fantasy. And they're like, our guild is called the Gourmet Guild. We're gonna go around and eat good food. And I'm like, sure.
Why not?
Yeah, basically in this world, from what I can remember, it's an isekai where different people from other worlds get transported into this world and they get their own little like person that tends to them. And the main guy, he lost his memories, and from what it looks like is that he has some history with this world, and he's just here again. And some people know him, but you don't find out that they know him until like later on in the series because for some reason they're like acting like they're somebody else. And all of the main characters are like completely oblivious. So we're just going on this merry adventure for food and getting money, like doing side quests. A lot of side quests that have to do with food. Like, we need help planting rice for this season. They're like, let's go do that. And then they eat rice balls that day because they helped plant rice. And or they're like, this fishing town, they need help with the fish. And they're like, let's go fish because the reward is you get to eat all the fish you want. And they go there because they want to eat fish. So it's it's like,
I mean, fair enough.
It's like the Yudu camp of fantasy anime.
Interesting.
Yeah, there is this story going on in the background with basically there's this dark power that has that manifests in these like kind of like how that that girl's power was in Glepner with the like a dark smoky power. There's these like kind of like skinny beings that are covered in this dark energy, and at first they pick up somebody's like they focus on somebody and they turn into that like a grayed out version of them with the exact same powers that they have. And
convenient.
Yeah, it's like one character gets beaten up and then absorbed by that entity. I can't remember what it's called. And then they basically become an evil version of themselves. Like somebody they've been possessed. And I don't like, and one thing that those beings keep chanting is like, make more of us, make more of us. And they don't really show how they replicate. They just keep showing up and keep getting blown up. But I'm not really sure. I don't know. Like, they haven't really explained like where they come from, what exactly are their powers, because before they would mimic people and then all of a sudden one of them absorbed the other person and then now they're disintegrating people. So it's like their powers kind of like inconsistent. And then they're a lot of the characters, like because they have so much in their costume,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of hard to tell who's who. Or it's like, oh, this is that one strong lady with the purple, and then this is that other strong lady with like the pink and purple, and then this is this other strong lady with like the blue and purple. But I can't remember which one's doing what because I don't know.
So not even a few different colorings for that stuff.
Well, it's like if I look at them again, I'm like, oh, okay, they look completely different. But from what I can remember with everything that's going on, I think there's two really strong female characters. One that's leading the like evil energy army, and one who's just roaming around and she's super strong. And then there's another one, but she's actually an old friend of the guy who lost his memories. And you don't know that until the end. So
that sucks.
Yeah, so I'm like, as far as like what's happening behind the scenes, there's something like, and the person who the main guy met and actually sent him to that world and like assigned him the person, she knows him, and she has that ancient gear and that's behind her that's broken. Through the whole series, it hasn't fixed itself, and I'm like, what do you need to fix yourself so we can progress this story? Because all they're doing is just running around getting food at all these different places and every now and then getting attacked by stuff. So it's a fun journey. It's silly. I like the characters. They're cool. They're interesting. But as far as like the adventure and like the progression of the story, I don't really know. Like, I feel like something's coming and I don't have enough information that they've given me to know what exactly is coming. But I know once it gets here, he's going to get his memories back and he's going to save the day. So, yeah. So, would I recommend this show? If you like cute girls doing fantasy stuff, then yes, this show is for you.
Not surprised.
Did this show meet my expectations? Yes. It is a fantasy show and it kept my attention, so yes. The direction that it went in, I did not know what direction it would go in because the last few fantasy shows that I've actually like watched and kept up with, all of the fantasy shows that I keep up with, they're like always off in left field. So they never like, there's this ancient power that we need to find to beat the bad guy, and you get that, and then you beat the bad guy. They never do that. They're like, what do you want to do in this fantasy world? And it's like, I want to eat monsters. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go eat monsters and become the strongest person on the planet. Okay. It's like, here's this other fantasy world. What do you want to do? I want to eat some good food. They're like, cool. Go all over the world and eat good food. And you're like, cool, I'll do that. So I'm like, I don't really know what direction these shows that I actually end up like getting latched onto will go in because they always go in a weird direction. Who is my favorite character? I'm gonna say the cat girl because she's the only character that's like changing a lot. She's supposed to be the bad guy. She's supposed to be attacking the redhead in the front. But the redhead is so ungodly strong that nobody's gonna beat her. She basically gets her energy from food. So she's always eating.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say always eating something.
Yeah, she's always eating something. And the only time that she can't fight is because she's like, oh, I forgot to eat breakfast. So, yeah.
So this is like one of those like shows of like for kids going to the beginning going, make sure to eat your breakfast every morning.
Well, no, it's just like, she's kind of like every now and then she'll be absent-minded, and that's the only way that she can like that she'll have the like won't have the upper hand. if things are going normally, and like she's also the chef of the house, so she's always cooking and always has all the food, knows the best ingredients because she's eating all over the place. So like she's always at the ready with food. And for some reason, like if they're like, oh my God, we're in a fight, come help us, and she like goes and gets knocked out, they're like, what happened? And she's like, oh, well, something happened this morning and I didn't get a chance to eat breakfast. And they're like, oh no, here, have a rice ball or something like she'll come across food somehow. And then she's like, oh, I'm strong again, like Popeye. And just
I was about to say, I'm like, what is this? Is this a Japanese version of Popeye now all of a sudden?
So, yeah. So as far as like my favorite character, like usually I like the brawler types of characters, and she is too strong, and the only way that she could get defeated is if something like derails her from her plan, and then she's weak, and then she'll just happen to stumble across food, and then she'll win. So that's too easy. The like mage girl, she's too timid and like too sweet, and like she has that like really soft, like really really girly soft voice, and like if she threw a punch, I would be shocked. I was like, oh my God, what happened to you this morning? Like I don't really see her like having much in like doing anything energetic without getting like tired immediately. And then the main guy, he's still like acts like he doesn't act like a baby anymore. Like he still uses broken language, and now that I found out that he's like the long lost hero that people are waiting to come back or something like that, I don't really know. I'm like, oh, well, no. Like, it's something's gonna happen in season 2, and it's gonna click, and then he's gonna be the hero that he used to be, and he's gonna win. I'm like, I don't care about him. So the other girl, she's supposed to be defeating the main girl, and she just can't because she's so ridiculously strong. And she tries and tries. She's like that tsundere character where it's like, well, I didn't like, what is it? Well, I didn't want you to like me anyway, kind of thing. Like bashful, but like playful, but like embarrassed. Like it's she's trying to kill her, and she ends up getting saved by her multiple times. So she's like frustrated. And then I guess her boss like sees that she's incompetent. So she's like, all right, don't try to kill her anymore. Just observe her and like report back to me some info. Because she's like in her head, she's like, I'll take care of it. Because she just can't do it. She's strong. She's very strong. It's just no match for the redhead. But then other than that, like she's starting to doubt what's happening because basically her boss was like, oh, we won't use this one power. And like she notices that it's being used. So then she like switches sides and becomes one of the good guys. How much of a good guy and how much she's going to be able to help in the last battle, that's left to be said. But yeah, I like the cat girl. She's interesting. What is my favorite part? I still want to say my favorite part was like the part that I talked about in the beginning, where they're fighting the big mushroom dudes, and one like their jokes got weaker across the series. Like I started to see what was coming, and it didn't catch me off guard anymore. So like they're like, I don't know. It's like somebody would they would ask a question. I'm like, oh, I guess we're going to the beach, and then they would go to the beach. Or they're like, oh, how about this? And I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this, and then they would do it. Like at the beginning, I didn't know what this world was or whose power and like what kind of monsters there are, and they knew that. So at the beginning, when we're fighting these monsters, the main guy, he like powers up all of a sudden with his hidden power that he keeps using that he's gotten better with. But at the beginning, the power just kind of welled up and he didn't know how to use it. And it's like these giant mushrooms are like just clobbering everybody. And like he charges up and he's like, ah! And the mushroom just like, bam! Just lays him out flat. And that is my favorite. I haven't laughed harder than that first episode. So there's a lot of stuff that they like try to kind of throw a little switcheroo with you on. It's not as good as the beginning. But yeah. So yeah. If you like cute girls doing fantasy things, this is the show for you.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, that's it for our final thoughts on the spring season of 2020.
Not a lot happening, but again, you know, the way things are currently in the world, it's kind of hard to have too much going on.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of stuff that's been delayed for this are going to be popping up next season.
For sure.
And
luckily, I think the Sword Art is one of those. So
yes, I'm halfway there. So over this next, let's see, the next episode will be on the 26th.
Ooh, 26.
26th of July. And we'll be talking about our initial thoughts. I have 3 weeks to watch the rest of Fire Force.
That's right, because Fire Force is one of those that it is coming up, though, right? That is one of those that was okay.
It's an episode 1 airing in 4 days. I'm like, oh god.
That one always it interested me, but I never fully got into it.
Yeah, actually like it. Parts of it remind me of Soul Eater.
I can see that.
Yeah. Just because of like there's certain elements like the structure of the different departments kind of reminds me of like the structure of the school, where it's like these group of people belong to this area, or these group of people belong to this group, and like there's like this very strong structure. So then the anime, like the art style, and like
yeah, see I think that was what originally drew me to it, but I just never. I don't know. It's definitely one of those shonen series, and I just don't know if I ever really got into it fully because of that. I don't know. It's the same thing. I mean, I started watching Black Clover, and that's another shonen series.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, a lot of the stuff looked really cool on some of the stuff that they did.
That was still going?
Yeah. As far as I know.
Okay.
As far as I know. But I stopped watching it, and it just kind of seemed like it kind of went by the wayside. So.
Yeah. Then we have Sword Art, which is going to be great. ReZero, which I can't wait for. No Guns Life, which I've seen all of. I'm already prepped for that one. I finished that one when it was airing.
This is true.
The God of High School, which seems like it's going to be another like epic show, kind of like Tower of God.
Mm-hmm.
It's done by Mappa, so I'm like, oh, this is good. Oh.
And that's why it makes me really glad some of these big studios are taking up the mantle on some of these too.
Yeah. And then Snafu, which they left season 2 on a cliffhanger. Like they asked the question, she's like, "Oh, so blah 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 blah." End of show. And I'm like, "No, answer the question."
But no, blah 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 blah.
And then another little silly show. Uzaki-chan wants to play. That seems like it's gonna be fun at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Got another epic looking show, Decadence. So yeah, this season seems like it's gonna be a well-rounded show. Got us a couple fantasy shows, got us a couple action shows, got us a couple romance shows. All we need is a horror show, but that's not till what, fall?
Yeah, we're not gonna see those till fall.
Yeah. But yeah. So that is it for today. We will be back in 3 or 4 weeks on the 26th. And we'll be talking about what we started on next season. So, as always, this is DK and Shade. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Thanks for supporting the channel on any way that you do. And we will see y'all next time.